Welcome to the Connected Leaders Academy virtual conference designed to reshape your vision of transformation. As we navigate the evolving business landscape, our speakers will unveil innovative strategies to manage and initiate change. Prepare to adapt, innovate, and lead, ensuring your role in this transformative era.
All right, let's have some fun. So I'm going to start by talking about football. You know, it's football season, pro football, college football. A lot of people are losing their minds right now because after a couple games, either your teams have won, a couple games and they're on their way to the championship, or your team has started off slow and, you're about to lose your mind because you believe your team is trash this year, or you're like me and you're a Cowboys fan and your team won great the first week and they look like trash the second week and you don't know what to do. But the thing I love about football is it's drama packed. These are amazing athletes. It's a physical game. And there's this kind of saying that, on any given Sunday in the NFL, really anything can happen. And in addition to that, unfortunately, because it's such a physical game, there are injuries. And you can be the star quarterback and you get injured and your backup has to be ready. In fact, they basically say it's a next man up league. The next man has to be ready. The next man can't get ready. The next man has to be ready, which means he has to stay ready. So my talk is called Don't Just Get Ready, Stay Ready. I am going to share 3 stay ready practices that I've used in my life that I'm going to share with you. 2 of them are going to apply to you as an individual that I would invite you to consider. And then one of them will be specifically for entrepreneurs. Many of us have small businesses or aspirations of having a small business, and one will be applicable for your small business. So let's get right into it. So to get to the first stay ready practice, I'm going to take you back to 10-year-old Cedric. 10-year-old Cedric in 1978. So we're going to go back to the Wayback Machine when I was 10 years old in 78 in Charleston, South Carolina. So to set the stage, we're going to go back to the 70s. And some of y'all are going to go back with me, right? So what was it like in the 70s? First of all, we wouldn't be on this Zoom call, right? Because there was no Zoom. There was no Netflix and chill, right? There was no 1,000 ways to look at entertainment through streaming or anything like that. In fact, there was that one console TV with those 3 channels, right? And those 3 channels turned off at 12 o'clock, midnight, or maybe 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, no entertainment. And nothing until maybe 6 a.m. in the morning. Between that time, it was black. And in fact, you didn't get any news in the morning until you got the newspaper, right? That was your first news of the day. And I remember as a little kid, the most grown-up thing to do, I remember just watching, the grown-ups read that newspaper, like in the kitchen table, reading the newspaper was like a grown-up thing, right? And drinking your coffee. Oh, that was another thing. There was no Starbucks, so you didn't have that pumpkin spice, none of that, right? That $8 coffee. You had maybe Sanka, right? Those crystals that you put into the hot water and your sugar. That was your coffee, right? So one of the first jobs that you got was delivering paper. In fact, that was my first job, paper boy or paper girl. That was the neighborhood job that you got. I mentioned that my first job was at 10 years old, but my first apprenticeship was 9 and a half. You see, my big cousin Keith was a few years older than me, and Keith had his paper route before me. And Keith was my hero. So when he told his little cousin Cedric that he could tag along with him, I was in heaven. So here started the lesson. Keith said, Cedric, I'm going to teach you the job. The first thing you have to do is you have to learn the timeline. The timeline starts with all the papers need to be delivered by 7 a.m. In order to deliver the papers by 7 a.m., you have to start delivering the papers by 6:30 because it takes a half hour. So that's the first mark. 6:30, you have to start delivering the paper. But anybody that's been a paper boy, a paper girl, and I think that we may have some paper boys and paper girls on this call, you know that you didn't get those papers ready to be delivered. They were dumped in the center of the neighborhood in a bundle, right? So you got your bundle of papers that you had to wrap and fold and put into your sack, right? So the next thing that my cousin taught me was you had to bundle the paper and you had to do it efficiently because you couldn't quickly do it, wrinkle the paper, rip the paper, because it was a neighborhood job. And you didn't want your neighbors to get mad at you because you gave them a ripped or wrinkled paper that they couldn't read. So he taught me to fold, crease, wrap with the rubber band. Fold, crease, wrap. Put it in the sack. That took about 15 minutes. All right, so here we go. 7 o'clock had to be delivered because we had to go to school. 6:30, we had to start delivering. We had to start production by 6:15. We're almost there. All right, got to get up in the morning, wash up, brush our teeth, put on our clothes, eat breakfast, ride our bikes to the drop-off site to start production. That took about a half hour. All right, so now we have the timeline. In order to deliver the papers by 7, we have to wake up by 5:45. Here is the stay ready practice that my big cousin Keith taught me at 9.5 years old that I have implemented in my life for my entire life. He said, Cedric, now that we have set the timeline, you have to get ahead of that clock and set your timeline. And what he meant by that is you need to move that time back, in this case, by a half hour. And instead of getting up at 5:45, we're getting up at 5:15. And what that meant was we start production at 5:45. We start delivering those papers at 6 o'clock. And this is where the magic happens. On most days, we complete delivering those papers a half hour early. But on some days, as the young folks says, life be lifing, meaning things will come up. You will be running late. But when you're 15 or 20 minutes late on your timeline, you are 10 or 15 minutes ahead of the timeline. And when you put that practice in your life, anybody who you're dealing with will see you as being one of the 3 P's. You will be seen as being prompt, prepared, and professional. We're just getting started. That is the first stay ready practice that I would encourage you to adopt. All right, let's get to number 2. Number 2, share your gifts with others. I'm going to share a story of my younger brother, Larry. A few years ago, Larry got a job selling cars, and it was right up his alley. Larry is a very charismatic guy. I mean, who can blame him? He's my younger brother and, me, but just kidding. Larry's very charismatic, very smart young man. And he's very competitive, and he's a gadget guy. Cars nowadays, they're nothing but technology on wheels. So he loves that kind of stuff. And he also loves to help other people, especially if technology is involved. So he and I hadn't seen each other in a while. And we decided that whenever I live in the Maryland area, he lives in South Carolina, whenever I'm down there, that we would have lunch. So I went down to visit, and we were going to meet, at his job. We met at his job, and I met a few of his colleagues, and I noticed that they were calling him professor. And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. And then he introduced me to his manager, the sales manager, and the sales manager said, your brother's doing a great job, and he actually makes my job easier. And I was a sales manager at one time, and I know that if you have a sales rep that's killing it, that of course, as the manager, that does make your job easier. But the sales manager said it's more than that. He said he actually makes the other sales reps better. And he said, I'm sure you hear them call him professor. Let me tell you how he got that name. He said, one day, your brother, he had sold some cars, his shift was over, and it was time for him to go home. But as he was leaving, they were having problems with the computers. And there was a lot of people in the dealership. Deals were happening, right? There were sales reps like closing deals, but they were stuck because there was problems with the computers. Your brother turned around and started to help troubleshoot the issue, and he solved the problem. The sales reps were able to complete their deals. Your brother didn't get anything from that, except he helped them. Of course, from that day on, they appreciated what he did. And when I say he makes my job easier, he literally does that. Fast forward a few weeks from then, they created a job for my brother. I think he's sales manager of internet or technology or something like that. He created a job because he shared his gifts with others. In one of my consultant services that I provide is helping optimize team dynamics. I cannot tell you guys how many times I work with teams where there are members of the team that have certain special gifts that the team needs that are not shared with the teams. And if the teams got that gift shared with that team, the team would be made better. So I would simply say that if you share your gifts with others, it would not only make you better, it would make the team that you're with better. So if we put these two stay ready practices together and you are the brand, let's look at how that brand you would look to people you work with. If you are the brand and you incorporate the stay ready practices of getting ahead of the clock and sharing your gifts with others, here's how you would present yourself to others. You would present yourself as a person who is prompt, prepared, professional, and help others be better. That would make you a person who would have opportunities come their way often, and you would be ready to take advantage of those opportunities. All right. Again, we're just getting warmed up. Now let's talk about entrepreneurs. So for entrepreneurs, I want to talk about how to make sure that entrepreneurs reach their full potential, right? Without question, entrepreneurs are needed in society. But I want to make sure that on this call, because we have so many superstars, I want to make sure that we really understand just how much successful entrepreneurs can contribute to society. I'm going to share, a story of one of my unsung heroes. This is a woman named Annie Malone. Annie Malone was born in 1869. She was the pioneer of African-American hair care. You see, in the late 1800s, Black women suffered serious problems with their hair, specifically with their scalp, right? It was difficult for them to grow hair and keep hair. They had hair loss, chunks of their hair would fall out, et cetera. And it was just a serious problem. And Annie Malone made it her life's work to solve that problem. So she experimented with different chemical products, and eventually she developed products to treat the scalp and to treat the hair, and it became a successful cure for the hair treatment, and then the hair started to grow, et cetera. She lived in Illinois at the time, and the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century, she moved from her small town in Illinois to what was known as the Atlanta of that time. You know, Atlanta today is a booming mecca for Black businesses, right? But it wasn't Atlanta in 1900. It was St. Louis, right? St. Louis was very rich in culture for Black Americans at the time. They had art, they had music, they had a rich nightlife. So she went there to start her business. And she built a huge company called Poro College Company. And she built a huge cosmetic training center where she trained cosmetic agents. So there was this army of Black cosmetic agents that became entrepreneurs. So that's one tick mark in her contribution to her growth of her business. Her business grew and she created other businesses that grew. There was a lady named Madam C.J. Walker. Many people know Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker grew her business based on Annie Malone because she was one of Annie Malone's agents, right? Again, we're just getting started. Annie Malone became so successful that by 1920, she became one of the wealthiest women in America. Hold on for a second. This is going to blow your mind. $220 million is how much her wealth amassed to. Again, she was born in 1869. By 1920, she was worth $220 million. With this, here's what she was able to do. Her passion was education. So she was able to pour into the St. Louis public education community and help build schools there. She was also able to pour into HBCUs, which were newer at that time, and they needed funding. So she was able to pour her wealth into those schools. And a school that's near and dear to me, I'm an alumni of Howard University. Howard University's medical school in 1920 got its biggest endowment from Annie Malone. At the time, $400,000 in today's dollars, the biggest endowment from her. That's near and dear to me because my oldest daughter was born at Howard Hospital. I only say all of this to just show how a very successful small business and entrepreneur can impact the world. And now I'm going to talk about our small businesses today. We got a lot of them. There are 33 million small businesses in the United States. But here is the cold, hard facts. The vast majority of them don't scale and they don't grow. 80% of them are solopreneurs, no employees. 50% of them fail within the first 5 years. The vast majority of them struggle to survive. And the main reason this happens is that many of them have all of their personal and their business finances all jumbled up together. And they maintain, in the eyes of the business world, to be an expensive hobby. And this is not a blame game. It's not a blame game at all. In many cases, these businesses, these entrepreneurs are doing the best they can. So my purpose here is just to educate and to say what has to happen, the stay ready practice that you have to consider is to become, the word in the finance community is bankable. If you become bankable, that means that you separate your personal from your business. Once you separate your personal from your business, then the business world, the finance world sees you as being a legitimate business. And once you are seen as being a legitimate business, then you get the business sort of tools, the business products that will allow your business to grow. Just like any logo that you see as you drive down the street, your business will be afforded those same things, right? And there's a process to get there. I won't kind of go through those details, right? We have those services with my organization, but the point I want to make is that really is the stay ready practice that I would implore any entrepreneur to seriously consider. I want to go quickly through a couple of big steps that you should consider to become bankable. The first big step is to get a scan of how your business looks to the outside world, right? And what that means is any lender or vendor that's looking at a business will do a scan of your business, and there's like a 20-point checklist. And a 20-point checklist will basically, be used to look at, does this look like a legitimate business? I'll give you a few examples of what they look like. And before I give you those examples, none of these things are fatal flaws. It's just, if you don't look like you're legitimate, then you fix it. That's it. So as an example, there's a term called NAP, N-A-P, name, address, and phone number. It's when you Google your business, does it look like a legitimate business name, business address, and business phone number? Or does it look like a residential or personal name, address, and phone number? Does it look like a spam? So lenders and vendors will look based on algorithms. Does this look legit or not? And the reason they do that is, am I going to give financial products to something that looks legitimate or not? That's basically what they're looking for. So that's one example. Other things are like websites, email addresses. Is it a Yahoo or Google, or Gmail versus a legitimate business? And there are 20 points like that when you scan your business, and different consultants and coaches and platforms can help you with that. Again, we have one. I would, be honored if you considered us, but I would suggest that you do that. The other thing is, to be a legitimate business in which you are bankable, you have to be registered to the 3 business credit bureaus. I know that some people are saying, what? Yes, there are consumer credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, but there are 3 separate business credit bureaus. Many people are aware of Dun & Bradstreet, but there's also Experian Business and Equifax Business. And in the business world, if your business is appropriately cleaned up, in other words, it looks legitimate, then the expectation is that your EIN is set up on those 3 business credit bureaus, right? Walmart, Microsoft, you name the logo, they are set up on those 3 business credit bureaus, right? So most of this is more awareness and education, but all those things have to be done to make your LLC appear bankable to the business and financial community. And then once those things happen, it's a matter of making sure that you line up with the right type of lenders and vendors, and that fits with the type of business that you do. I won't go into a lot more details here, but the main point that I want to make is, it really does matter that if you want your business to scale and grow and have the maximum level of contribution it can have to your community and to society overall, that you take the serious step of making it bankable and separate from what you do personally with your finances. So I'm going to summarize. I think I'm coming down to the end. I want to summarize and say, very much to the end. I'm going to summarize and say that this is always a pleasure. I think that if you take these stay ready practices to heart, it can make a world amount of differences to how you move in the world. And I think you would be ready for any opportunity that comes your way. As always, thank you very much. I appreciate this platform, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for participating in today's enlightening session. As we transition to our next expert, remember that each strategy and insight is a step toward becoming a transformative leader in your field. Visit ConnectedLeadersAcademy.com to stay engaged and informed. The journey of change is ongoing. Let's move forward together.